Glass now tipping pitches? Vlad leading the league in dingers. Hoffman on the IL. Manoah started and crushed the Yankees. MLB rookie pitchers. MLB starting. League leaders. MILB hitting league leaders. So much to discuss. It's time for Dingers.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Oh, we were on mute, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just start that back from the top. Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just Alek Manoah that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs joined again by Robbie Baseball from the Murder Room. Howdy.
Howdy, partner.
How we doing this evening, Robbie?
Good. I picked this cowboy hat up because I'm doing a snake check in the basement. And now every time I walk in here, I'm terrified that there's going to be a snake somewhere because that's the life I lead. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, didn't look us up at Robbie Baseball 1 on Twitter, I found a snake sleeping in a Toronto Blue Jays toque that's right here, right behind me. It hangs out here. And the snake was sleeping peacefully when I came down on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, and it ruined my day. I made the joke to my wife that we're selling the house.
And that snake should be named Stevie Matz, I think.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's right. Because Matz did it. That was so that was a Tuesday then, whenever it was.
Yes, it was, I believe.
So Tuesday found the snake, but now I check everything in here, and it is somewhat cluttered because I've decided I don't care to clean it because this is my murder room.
That's right.
So, but anyway, other than cowboy hats and checking for snakes, I'm super duper. Ty, how are you?
I'm excellent. I mean, we got to see a phenomenal start from our boy today. We'll get into that in a little bit, but things are good. The sun's coming out. Golf's allowed here in Ontario. But let's get into it. We got a lot to cover here this evening. Before we do, let's get busy. A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle. This is a drink I've been waiting for all day. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah?
Look at that thing.
I know, isn't that pretty? I feel like this is gonna suck, but it looks and the feel is terrific. So
that's the old golfer's analogy. If you don't play good, look good, right? Like, I mean, that is 100% what that's gonna be. I think I'm with you.
So,
on that one.
El Gringo La Panga.
Wow, nailed it.
Yeah.
So
look forward to somebody correcting that one.
Basil Hayden's for me again this evening. Surprise, surprise. We're not allowed to get imports here in Canada yet. So when that happens, great.
Yeah.
But let's talk what happened today, Robbie, and I'll let you pick the first topic.
Sure. Well, we had a gaffe off the top of the show with the mute button, Ty. So let's discuss a big gaffe in MLB with Pittsburgh and Chicago Cubs. So
I think it's really interesting. Over the last
give me your thoughts.
The last couple of hours, all I've seen is like Javi Baez pulls off a miracle. There was 2 outs. Step on the first base.
There we
right?
Go back to the Jays.
No runs scored. Like, just if the guy doesn't come to you, turn around, step on the bag. The inning's over. No runs scored. Or if you do chase him a little bit, smarten up. Third part of that, second baseman, where are you at? What are you doing? You got one job on that play. And he wasn't there either. There was just so much bad there on Pittsburgh. I can't possibly say anything positive about Javi Baez. Contreras did a nice job sneaking in there, right? Like he had,
Yes.
a tough job while the guy's looking at him. He still managed to squeeze through. That's more impressive to me than Baez, but easily the worst play I've seen so far this season. Not even close. Like it might be the worst one we see all season.
Yeah, I remember the Blue Jays had some like horrible play several years ago where like Aaron Sebia threw it into second base like twice or something, whatever it was. But this one in particular, Ty, this is solely the fault of the third baseman. A poor throw over to first on an easy out is the reason why this play happened. Now, the second error is, of course, as you said, it's the first baseman. Back it up and touch the bag. That's the safe play. The smart play was Baez saying, well, you got to tag me if you're not going to go backwards. And then he decided to back up. Now that's when it starts to just become little league and slow pitch and whatever, whatever you want to say to like maximize. But again, like you said, Ty, second baseman goes over to first, you make that play, it's over. I don't know. Like it was embarrassing to see, but the fact that people are calling a player brilliant for doing a smart thing is a little silly to me. Now, he was smart. Like what he did was what Baez did was smart. You're not out and you prolong the play. That's being a good teammate. Like that's good baseball. Totally. But the error is right back on whoever was playing third base. Then it goes to whoever was playing first base. And it should not have been a highlight. The whole thing. And then anything after that is just nonsense because there's And so what do you think? Earned run or unearned run?
I mean,
I say it's an error on the third baseman. Or it's an error on the first baseman. It's not on the pitcher.
It's an error on the third baseman for sure. But that's definitely an error which would lead to an unearned run. So it's a dumb one, but it definitely
absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about the other one. Glasnow tipping pitches. I think it was on Clubhouse that you mentioned it once or twice prior to the Glasnow start last Friday, saying the Jays, tagged him up. They might know they might know what's going on. He might be tipping pitches. Well, sure enough, an article comes out whenever it was over the weekend after the same thing happened again, where the Jays lit him up. It didn't matter for Toronto. At the end of the day, they didn't win, but they were able to hit up one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball right now. So you had thought that may have been happening before. You also said something to me before we started recording that you saw Glasnow has basically said, well, I wasn't tipping pitches. So what are your thoughts on Glasnow or any pitcher saying, no, I'm not tipping pitches?
I mean, obviously no pitcher wants to be tipping pitches. So to say and confirm as the pitcher throwing the ball that you're definitely not tipping pitches is one of the stupidest things you could ever say. So shame on you guys now. Focus on yelling at the TV camera and swearing on national TV. That's your job. Strike people out, swear on TV. Stay away from deciding whether or not you're tipping pitches because obviously Toronto knows something. And I mentioned this to our friend Jonathan Mason, who is the founder of the Toronto Blue Jays fan club on Clubhouse. But, one of the things they said, there was a Vladdy home run in that start. That was a spinning curveball at the top of the zone. And Vladdy didn't skip a beat in knocking it out of the yard. There was no recovery. There was no unbalanced, staying level or any of that stuff. It was just completely smooth and completely timed up. And that for me, absolutely anchored the idea of they knew something. So it's usually tipping pitches. You just don't sit on a curveball at the letters. So it's one of those things that was really obvious to me that they knew something. So I do think he's tipping. I don't know how. I haven't looked at the video close enough to do that, but I'm glad that everyone else realizes it now because in two starts he's given up like 11 runs against the Jays and has like maybe 9 the rest of the season in like 7 starts. So it's a pretty obvious scenario to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things, right? We very briefly discussed before that way back when 15 or 16 Kansas City after the playoffs said, oh yeah, we knew Price was throwing his changeup because he did this thing. That's advanced scouting. So if advanced scouting is doing its job, it can pick something like that off. And all you got to do is just in a pregame, you just talk to your hitters and you say, if you see this, it could mean this. And that's into that. And I mean, it's good to see Toronto got swept in that series. So it's, and even just losing that game. So it's somewhat irrelevant, but the fact you can hit somebody up and then to have the potential controversy is really dumb. Like that's not the lead story. Should be Tampa Bay sweeps division rival Toronto as Toronto's bats are heating up, right? Like this is the thing we talked about earlier this year was we didn't have concerns with Toronto's offense. We were very scared of Toronto's pitching. And then what happens in baseball? Well, the pitching starts out fine and the hitting slowly but surely comes along, except at the catcher position, unless you want to count a really empty average from Reese McGuire, which I think was 261 at some point during today's game when I looked, and I remember thinking, well, that's the worst thing that can happen is that Reese McGuire has the best average of your catchers, and Danny Jansen, who you want to have the job, cannot get even 200. You can't get there and stay there for more than a day or two. So it's a really, really like weird scenario, but at the same time, you know, we're Blue Jay fans, and we know the team, and to see that the pitching is now starting to falter a little bit.
And
I'm interested to know more.
From TDL Baseball. Question for you, homers. Is Romano the closer in Toronto? What do you think, Robbie?
He was in game 1. I think if we saw a playoff game, he would be 2, but I don't think that's how Toronto's going to play it. Because I think that was only his second save of the year.
I think it's his job to lose, but I think they're using him very similar to how Tampa Bay has been using Nick Anderson over the last season and a half. I know he's on the injured list right now, but you know, they're using him in leverage situations. I think that's the way they're using Romano. I think he's, you know, the theoretical closer, even though he might not be pitching the 9th inning. But depending on what they do with Julian Merriweather, like he's definitely going to be in that conversation as well when healthy. I think I saw today or yesterday that he started throwing again. So we're probably a couple weeks away from seeing him again back in that bullpen, which will really give it some stability that it desperately needs. So
so let's talk about another injured guy, Ty.
Okay.
Jeff often mentioned on this podcast, Jeff Hoffman left yesterday. Now there was like a 4+ hour delay, not related to him not coming back or anything. Weather delay in Cincinnati, or sorry, for the Reds game. And Hoffman was out, was not pitching well beforehand, and is now on the IL, shoulder impingement. The wording of that is not scary. The road that a shoulder issue can lead to with thoracic outlet, and what would your best case be? Julio Urias. Your worst case would be it's not Matt Harvey, because Matt Harvey is now back pitching. He's just not effective, but he's back pitching. So there are worser case scenarios, more worseted scenarios than a Matt Harvey, which is still not good. But Jeff Hoffman, who we were really looking at as becoming like a major league starting pitcher, which was essentially like one of those dynasty league from the ashes stories where anybody could have got him that was listening to us in the offseason, because the value was non-existent. Even after the trade, it was non-existent, right? Even early in spring training, it was non-existent. But what do you think
about waiting for him to come around, right? So we're still in that window, you know, where I think he comes back in June or July. And that's when I thought he'd be effective. So we got lots of time to wait on Jeff Hoffman still. And frankly, if you own Jeff Hoffman, you're probably ready to wait for him, right? Because if you own Jeff Hoffman, that means you're willing to take the risk. So you're either deep and have him as a maybe. If you were banking on him winning you a championship, then your team's not good enough to win a championship. So
he can't be the final piece.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So he's there to be a nice surprise and or a piece that you can trade off. So let's get the last bit of Toronto info out of the way here, Robbie, or do we want to save that for in the list here?
Well, we'll touch on, we'll skip Manoah because we're going to touch on him when we start talking about minor league pitchers and the ones that have been good, like himself, and the ones that we should be concerned with. But the last Toronto news is Vladdy leading the league, but I think it's the AL in dingers headed into play today.
Who passed them on the NL side? Because did Acuna get to 17?
Oh no, I was under the impression he was the AL only leader when I first looked it up.
There's anyone at 17 in the NL. So
okay, I will quickly have a look-see. Let's just quickly have a look. But the more important thing is do we all remember in Dynasty when Vlad was called up and it wasn't coming together and people were just losing their minds that Vlad went from, we had a startup league, I think, and Vlad went for $28, a ridiculous amount of money. It was that per season. In leagues where you use a big salary cap, he was a big guy, right? From day one, before he was up, he was the most polarizing man. So yes, Ty, you are right. He's tied with Adolis Garcia with 16 apiece.
The captain of PED in a cup.
Whoa.
He has to be getting tested on the Ryan Braun schedule.
Well,
Like,
the Eric Thames schedule. I was laughing when I heard somebody else mention it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just didn't want to forget this, that we, still talking Toronto base here. We once had Chris Colabello come up and out of nowhere and be very good for not, change the game of baseball, league leader, home run guy, but very good, effective player for a short period of time. And then, he got popped and just
he was more
boom.
of a slap at a base guy. Slap at a base.
But he was an effective guy and first base. He was able to do it at an important position when Toronto needed it. And then, turned out he was doing some type of like horse tranquilizer, whatever, like one of those like really old school Russian mid 80s type of testosterone enhancement thing. So anyway,
and one last thing before we get into this, and I know we're dragging on a little bit, but this is a fun one I'm excited for. Apparently this afternoon, Josh Donaldson announced that he's going to release a catalog of all the major league pitchers that are using banned substances. So I don't know where he's pulling this list from, but this has nothing but fun written all over it. And
that must be the opposite. So if Momentum is the Trevor Bauer site, this must be like decelerate. That's the Josh Donaldson. Let's slow it down here. We don't want to go forward. We want to just stop everything. But that was a point that was brought up with Gallegos, right? Having his hat taken away for the substance on the tip. I mean, come on, MLB, come on, umpires. That's not your call. If the other manager says something, that's just like in hockey. Everybody's got an illegal stick. So you can call anybody on it at any point in time if you really want to. That's something that the NHL just has like a base in place that they don't want the sticks to be so ridiculous.
But the thing is, the players are stating it and the umpires have to do it. So it looks as if Joe West did it unprompted, but I got to imagine if there was something. If we see him today, I want you to look for this, right? I would imagine that happened either in the pregame chat or throughout the game. Somebody said something to Joe West. Joe West didn't just magically go out and look right at his hat. Like there was a premeditated component to that for sure.
And Schmidt, the manager, for St. Louis manager, had said something after the game about, he wears the same hat all year. And because he wears the same hat all year, it gets crap on it. I understand. I have very few hats that don't have disgusting sweat stains and things like that when I'm wearing them outside. They get dirty. And I'm not a major league pitcher. But at the same time, if I knew it could cost me, if I put an illegal substance on it, I would be the Ivan Nova, like back of my neck, pine tar. Oh, I was Pineda, silly me, pine tar Pineda. Putting it somewhere like that so it's not on my hat, clear as day. But there are guys who, in college will get called for the glove and they confiscate the glove and there's nothing on the glove. Like it's silliness. And at the end of the day, it's just a bad look for baseball. But there are also cameras everywhere. If a team truly wants to know if someone's cheating, it's really easy for them to actually look into it and find out, look, here on his hat, here and whatever. And maybe to your point, Ty, that's exactly what happened. So
without a doubt in my mind, that's what happened for sure.
Yeah, so we'll do a quick recap for everybody now. We appreciate you letting us go through a bit of news and notes and some baseball talk for us before we get into the minor league episode that we are doing for our Dynasty Fantasy Baseball podcast. Don't forget, you can hit us up at Dingers Pod on Twitter, at Tourney Boss for Ty, at Robbie Baseball 1 for myself. We will answer your questions. We can post your questions up as polls to get as many eyes on them as we possibly can to help you win your league. So last week, Ty, we went through, it's early, but we went through the MILB league leaders in different categories, including, but not limited to, home runs, RBIs, and stolen bases. This week, I just have a quick recap. I nixed the stolen base aspect to it because I wanted to concentrate and add OPS, which is going to help people who are wanting to know what might be a little bit more realistic for promotions, because as great as an average is, it's a little bit better when you know the guy's got a good OBP going along with that power. So Jesus Sanchez is leading East AAA, I believe it is, with a 1308 OPS. He also has a 431 average, which is leading all of minor league baseball, I believe, at this moment in time. Taylor Trammell, who was demoted, has a 1353 OPS in AAA. Brian Ray, who I have written at AA, I think he is low A. So I'm going to put a question mark and circle back on him, but he is a Cincinnati product. I believe a 24-year-old, 1325 OPS. Alex McGarry, Cincinnati low A, Cincinnati boys, 1282 OPS. And those are some of the highest in pro sport. Now, Jacob Robson, who in 19 had a pretty good year, I believe at AAA with Detroit. He's a double A right now, 26-year-old, has a 1243 OPS, a 424 average, only 2 dingers, 10 RBIs, but 4 stolen bases. So he's 26 years old. If there are further, and he's an outfielder, if there are further issues with Detroit's outfield or later, at some point later on this year, the opportunity is there. Robson could easily be up in AAA in the next month because he clearly can handle AA. He could be somebody that slides into your deep leagues. I know I owned him in one and dropped him this past offseason because I think his time may have just passed, right? He's now going to play this year at 26. Well, if he can rake at AA and continue at AAA to a similar clip, yeah, okay, maybe that's going to be a good one. And then one more guy who we did mention last week, and we'll get to him talk dingers, is Johan Messies, Mieses with Boston, 25-year-old. Brick S House is a good way to describe his frame. Playing at AA again, 1105 OPS. He has the most home runs in AA at 9 right now. So switching over now to home run leaders, Joe Adell, Ty. Joe Adell. Everybody remember Joe Adell? Joe Adell sucks. Joe Adell's no good. He couldn't do it last year. Well, he's got 10 dingers, 20 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, a 266 average, which is telling you it's all power, baby, and a 1022 OPS, AAA, LA. Yes, Ty.
And everyone now all of a sudden is like, he should be called up. Why aren't they calling Joe Adell up? Like,
yeah,
pick a side, people.
Exactly.
You know he's on the list. He'll be there.
On the list. And another guy, Orlando Arcia. You know how he's the future shortstop of Milwaukee, Ty? Well, Willie Adames is there. Also, Orlando Arcia is in Atlanta. And we all know how much you like Dansby Swanson's second half of each season. So a 26-year-old Orlando Arcia playing well. I was tongue in cheek, everybody. Ty does not like Dansby Swanson down the stretch, but a 325 average, a 1077 OPS, 13 RBIs, 3 stolen bases to boot, and 8 dingers. He's leading the AAA East, I believe, in dingers.
Garcia definitely is hurting my one share of Jason Kipnis, though. He's going to steal that roster spot in my super like rebuilding team in the one.
Okay.
We're in.
Yeah.
He is a come on, be valuable for like 20 minutes so I can trade him. 100% what that play is.
Yeah, well, hey, and those are important things. I know it's not on here now, but there's a player, Patrick Wisdom, who came up to take the spot of Duffy on the Cubbies. He's unowned in a couple 30-team leagues. Now, in one of them, he's not able to be owned just because of restrictions where you can't pick up a rookie. But in 2 other leagues, 2 other 30-team leagues that I'm in, he is available. I have put in waiver claims on him just as a filler. This is a filler guy. Sometimes they come up, and he wasn't doing really well at AAA, but some teams don't care about that. They're like, we know what you can do, bat to ball here. So the other 2 guys who I have yet to mention, low A league leader with 5 is Noelly Marte, who also happens to have an S-ton of RBIs for himself, league leader, in RBIs for low A. But finally, I'll put it off a high A, Kansas City, Vinny Pasquantino.
Nailed it.
Pasquantino. He has 8 dingers, 18 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, but a 203 average and an 887 OPS. So I'm not running out there to go pick him up because he's got a bunch of dingas. RBI leaders very quickly. At low A, leading all of minor league baseball, is Gunnar Henderson, who we did mention last week. Baltimore Oriole, 338 average, 1083 OPS, and 3 stolen bases to go along with 6 dingers, but 30 RBIs. Just beautiful start to the year. Jose Siri, AAA with Houston, who we mentioned. Vidal Brujan, AAA with Tampa Bay, playing outfield, brought up as a second baseman. He's got 20. And then, yes, as I did mention, Noelly Marte. So we are going to continue to do these things for you, let you know who the league leaders are, who are some guys to look out for, because there are other very interesting guys like Rangel Ravello, Ty, the perfect LA Dodger that nobody knows about, 29-year-old at AAA right now with a 382 average 1194 OPS, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs. This is what I like to do. This is always fun for me, is to go in and look for people that no one knows. Ty calls it dumpster diving. I call it discount shopping. And
well, it just feels like it's the beer on the third shelf that you've never heard of before. Right, you're just like, what the hell's a Rango Ravello? Like,
what is El Gringo La
Yeah,
Pachanga? But so Rango Ravello, if you're in trouble in a league and you're like looking for just a dude, if you got a roster spot open, there's nothing wrong with throwing it on a 29-year-old guy at AAA who's raking, because he might actually be up. And the whole point, as we talked about so many times, the whole point of prospects is for them to come up and help your major league team. Well, if they are already on the cusp and no one owns them for one reason or another, this reason will definitely be age related. You could still go and just pick him up. I bet you he's a free agent in several leagues. The only other guy I wanted to mention was a guy batting 406 in AAA, and that is Owen Miller with Cleveland. He's a 24-year-old. Just another guy to note. We can get into those guys, Ty, next week. Now, do you want to start with the minor league guys or the MLB rookie pitchers? What is your preference?
Let's start with the major league guys, because I think most people will be familiar, and let's get into the deeper, longer tail behind that. So I'm gonna kick it to you, because you are a fan of the Daniel Lynch and Chris Bubic, who are two of the names near the top in the Kansas City setup over there. Where are you sitting with these guys? How, we haven't seen very much positivity yet outside of what Bubic has done, but I'll hand it to you to diagnose the situation here.
Sure. Yeah. So Lynch, 24-year-old lefty, 6'6", 200 pounds. He's now back down in AAA. He just has not had a great year, right? Like 19 and 2/3 total innings for the year. He had a 16.88 ERA in 3 starts, 8 1/3 innings, I think it was. So then an 11 1/3 AAA, which I'm guessing is 2 starts, 3.86 ERA, 20 Ks on the year. This is both levels. 9 walks though, 9 walks in 19 innings. That's not what you want from a potential SP2. And a 287 whip in MLB and a 137 in AAA, which is basically just as bad. I know it doesn't sound like it, but with only 8 1/3 innings in MLB and getting his tits lit, this is an absolute situation where I can't imagine an intelligent dynasty owner would trade him to you right now. But there is no harm in going and knocking on that door. And one of the reasons is that he'll get another shot, and he'll get another shot this year. And if he doesn't, it's injury related. I can't imagine performance will be an issue when they know what the raw skills are going to be. The alternative here in KC, and we've talked about on a previous podcast, is Chris Bubic. And Bubic is a 23-year-old lefty as well, 6'3", 225. Good build to him. They're both from the 18 class. They were 6 spots apart in the draft. One was in compensation round, first round, 34th overall. One was 40th overall. So they're basically the same dude, but everybody was hyping Lynch, and Bubic was supposed to be the K machine, right? He had the big year. We talked about it before. So 23 and 2/3 innings, all at the MLB level, a 152 ERA this year, but 16 Ks. And that's the problem that people see with him. Sorry, 17 Ks. That's the problem that people see with him. 12 walks. That is the problem with him right now, is you got a lot of that nibbling and a lot less of that aggressiveness. And when a lot of pitchers are being more aggressive right now, Bubic's going the other way. Now, yes, he's having success in the fact that his ERA is lower, but he needs to be putting the ball over the plate more, whether that means weaker contact, whatever comes of it. He needs to stop nibbling, because those walks are not sustainable. And a 114 whip is decent. But both of these dudes are absolute holds if you own them. I would not sell Bubic, because he's doing exactly what you were hoping he would be able to do. And the fact that what he's not doing well right now is walks, which is something every pitcher should easily be able to limit if they just make the mental choice of throwing it over the plate more. If that's catcher related, he's got Salvi there. I can't imagine Salvi saying, you know what, we need to keep nibbling, because he's got to be able to earn him all those strikes when he's doing that. And I think with Lynch, I think it's just going to be get him back in, let him churn it out, let him sort himself out. Maybe he comes up with a new approach. Maybe he was just rushed. Maybe KC was in a position where they thought, throw him to the fire and see what happens. We saw it with Nate Pearson, did not look good. Daniel Lynch equal to that. So with KC,
the eye test for me on Lynch wasn't positive. The stuff just doesn't look sharp.
It's fish out of water.
Yeah, it
right?
just didn't look. It doesn't look sharp enough, right? Like there's guys that have come up that have looked fantastic. He's not one of those guys,
Right.
it's not a matter of like not locating. Like to me, it was a matter of like the stuff's not good enough, and so you need to see that sharpen up. Could be the TV angle sometimes that you have to keep in mind, right? That's not. It's you have to see multiple angles before you can truly make a final assessment. But the TV angle is not nice to his stuff. So Logan Gilbert, on the other hand, I think is a different category for me. I think he's just catching too much of the plate, and I think he needs to learn to nibble a little bit. That's what I've seen so far with Gilbert. Are you feeling differently about that one?
No, I'm chuckling to myself thinking I completely agree with you because what I just said about Bubik needs to stop nibbling. That's exactly what Logan Gilbert needs to start doing. Gilbert doesn't need to sit, in the upper 90s with his fastball. He needs to just hit the damn strike zone more. And he needs to stop hitting the strike zone so much is what I meant to say. He's got 2 walks in 15 2/3 innings this year, 16 Ks, which is great. But I think he could easily up the K count and also have a few more walks, and he'll be just as effective of a pitcher. So at AAA, the WHIP was 0.8, and in MLB it's 1.4. So
he needs to hit the mascot, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
he needs to come out and scare.
What's the is it? It's not Slump Buster. What's the thing that they call it in Bull Durham? Or is it Summer Catch? Summer Catch. It's Slump Buster.
Yeah,
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, I don't know what hitting the mascot is though. That's a new one to me. But some of the guys in the White Sox bullpen, Kopech and Crochet, are both great pieces. I think they're doing exactly what we talked about a lot in the offseason. They're establishing themselves as bullpen pieces. I watched the end of a game the other night where Kopech was closing the game out, and he looked phenomenal, looked great, but looked great in the bullpen kind of way. Like not enough of a repertoire to be an effective starter, which is what I've been saying over and over and over again. If he doesn't develop that third pitch at an elite level, he will never make it out of the bullpen. And whether Chicago already knows that or whether they're just pushing him in that direction subtly, I don't know. But it just looking more and more like that. Crochet is 1,000% a bullpen arm. And whether people still believe he's a starter or not, I'll let people live in that mirage.
Thank you. I'd like to live in that mirage.
Yeah, and that's fine. You're going to be disappointed because he's a bullpen arm. He's got 12 innings and 9 walks. Right?
Yeah, I know.
That's a bullpen arm.
It's crazy too because like he hasn't been really crushed on it. Now the WHIP's 1.7. Again, bullpen, right? It's all small sample, but 18 2/3 career innings for him. His ERA this year is 0.71. But he's also been on the IL this year. He was on the IL last year, as Ty has said. There are reasons why. Now Crochet has a 6'5", 230 frame. That's Ty's frame. He likes that build of a guy. Kopech 6'3", 210. All muscle, as we know. Anybody who's seen him with his shirt off.
The man bun, though, that's got to go. Like how you can survive in the South Side with a man bun, I think it's got to go. Like that's the opposite of swagger.
Okay, that's the opposite of swagger. It depends on where you're coming from because that might be swagger to some. What is swagger to one man is shame to another.
Excuse me, is another man's trash.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to go anyway. So Kopech also, because I wanted to note this part, is 44 2/3 innings through. So he is 2 weeks or less away from no longer being rookie eligible. Remember how long it took Alex Reyes to not be rookie eligible? Oh my God, or prospect eligible. And that's why I did mention it. We also have Trevor Rogers further down. Now, Rogers is 56 2/3 innings already this year. I think it was 18 that he had last year. So he's not going to be a rookie next year, but he still counts. He's a rookie this year. So he's valid to talk about on a rookie episode. He's over exceeding expectations. He was the 13th overall pick in 17. He, again, I don't know, Ty, is this frame too wiry for you? 6'5", 196?
No, but I've said this in a recent episode. It just, I think for me, like I'm a Trevor Rogers believer, but if I'm trying to win this season, I'm trading him just because I think he's going to fade. So like be ready for the fade on the back half of this season. I would be very shocked if he's effective for 200 innings. I just don't see that happening. And he's on pace for that at this point. So, I think that's my big concern. He already has 56 innings. right? Like that's
56 innings, 70 Ks.
yep,
Beautiful stuff.
really,
So
really good. Just be
yeah.
ready for the fade.
And the other thing to note with Trevor Rogers is that, as Ty say, note like there's a fade coming. If there isn't a fade coming, there's Cy Young votes coming his way. So, and if it is, it's probably going to make 2022 even harder to replicate because that's not who he's been. Now, a 13th overall drafted player is expected to do great things. Trevor Rogers is doing great things. So if you picked him, good for you. Enjoy this. Somebody that no one picked, he was a 4th round pick in 15 with Miami, is Cody Poteet. The 26-year-old 6'1", 190 righty is now up and in the majors. 17 innings at MLB, 5 at AAA. He's got a 106 ERA, 13 Ks on the year, only 2 walks, and a .7 whip. And I believe that that's why he's up. He can.
We have to nickname this guy Spud, right?
Wow.
You say petite, I say potato.
We can do better. We can do better.
Stretch? Okay.
But anyway,
I needed to know.
Yeah, so this to me, Ty, is kind of like the Robert Duggar. If you recall Robert Duggar, who's now in Seattle, a guy that I liked coming up in Miami. I thought he had opportunity to play. Jordan Yamamoto is another example of this. Miami just like pulls from their depth and says, you're doing okay. Go ahead, make it happen. And that's what we've got here with Cody Potato. I'm not expecting greatness at all from him. Enjoy the moment. He wasn't owned in one of our 30-team leagues. He wasn't owned in a 13 points league because this is exactly what happens with guys who are drafted after the 3rd round in your dynasty leagues is people don't know who the heck they are. So they have to light the lamp in minor league ball to be Chris Rodriguez of the Angels, who we'll be talking about in a couple weeks. But they have to be one of.
You have to come talk to us though.
Yeah, they have to be one of those guys. Yeah, they have to be one of those guys who wants greatness, says, hey, what's the deal with this guy, with that guy? Well, we didn't have minor league baseball last year, right? So we get to talk about it this year, and he's just one of those guys. So that's the MLB notable rookies that we're going to discuss tonight. We got to spread it out. We don't want to go too deep on everybody. The fun part of this is, of course, the minor league guys. So I will organize this here, Ty, for league leaders in strikeouts. And we are across minor league baseball. The league leader tonight, amazing, a 2020 first round pick, Cade Cavalli with Washington. Pretty cool. 22 innings, 34 Ks, a 205 ERA, 8 walks on the year, and a whip of 1.09. I'm pretty happy with the Cade Cavalli share I have. Wish I had more. Seeing this K rate is happy time to me because they put him at high A, and as a 22-year-old, I imagine by the midpoint of the summer, he'll be at double A, and Washington's pitching situation is always in flux. So I can see him sneaking up. We talked about it before in the offseason, actually. They don't have a lot of depth. So the door is open for any performer within Washington to move up.
I just don't think they're going to be in a rush because at some point they're going to need to have a complete rebuild of that rotation. And I think it would be silly from an organizational standpoint when you have guys like Anibal Sanchez that are still out there that could, or Cole Hamels that could fill in that gap. I think it would be a little premature to rush a Cade Cavalli because he is the ace that you need to replace these aging arms that they have. So
I believe Washington has 3 high flight dudes all around the same age with Cavalli. I think it's 3 total. But yeah, I mean, like, cause it's Strasburg, 4 years left, I think, on his 7-year extension that he had.
He makes it.
Well, yeah, true. Okay. Scherzer, who I guess just tells them how long he wants to pitch, and correct. Washington's got to just sign the contract. Like,
he has the key to the city.
Yeah, just do the Roger Clemens. Like, what do you want? 40 million? Okay, sure. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
You've got Austin Voth. It's pretty much the same thing as Scherzer. How long do you want to pitch? How much money do you want? No. But after that's what I was getting. After that, you've got Patrick Corbin, who I think has 1 year left on his deal. I don't remember exactly what that deal was. I don't remember if it may have been 6 years. Like, he might have 3 years left on that deal.
Yeah, I think he has like a number left. I don't think.
Oh man.
1.
So that might be part of it, as you're talking about. That might be because that's when, like, was it Mason Denberg is one of the other guys, and the other name is escaping me. But either way, yeah. So that's one of the guys
through 24.
Okay. Yikes. Okay. Yeah, pump the brakes on Cavalli.
Last couple games, though.
No. I just mean to have someone that is not at peak right now, and to know that you've still got multiple years left of them as an organization, that's probably not a great feeling. But at the same time, I would rather that than be Pittsburgh, who's like combing waiver wires and trying to just get someone who will not give up 6 bombs. So other league leaders. So I'll just mention the guys that are 30 strikeouts and above. So we've got Angel Zerpa, who is at high A with Kansas City. He is a 21-year-old. Simeon Woods Richardson, 20-year-old righty with the Jays. That's 31. DL Hall, Baltimore, 22-year-old lefty, 31. Grayson Rodriguez also with Baltimore at 31, and he's at high A. Jackson Cower, part of the Kansas City Six that I talk about, 24-year-old righty. He's got 32. Same with Nick Lodolo, who's with Cincinnati. Ethan Elliott, who's with San Diego. Luis Medina with the Yankees. He's got 32, but he also has 12 walks to go along with that. So everybody just be easy on that. Caleb Killen, killing it with San Francisco at high A. He's got 32 and 1 walk, Ty, in 21 2/3 innings. Tyler Megill, who's the brother of the other Megill that's, I think, with Seattle. It's got 33. This Megill's with the Mets. Then you've got Jonathan Bermudez. I haven't had enough to drink to be. Yeah. Bermudez, 25-year-old lefty with Houston at AA, 33 Ks for him. And then Hunter Green with Cincinnati AA, and Rosny Contreras, who is your future Jameson Taillon replacement in Pittsburgh. He got the aggressive assignment at 21 years of age to go to AA, and he's got 34 strikeouts, a 2.08 ERA, and 21 2/3 innings, and a whip of .78. That's nice.
Yes.
I think Pittsburgh may have known what they were doing with that Taillon trade, because I know they went with the bulk package that everybody was complaining about. With everybody this offseason was traded. Every stud, those Blake Snell studs. Hey, Blake Snell's a stud. Okay. But it was all like the package return, right? Which everybody was upset with. So those are the K leaders. Of those, I only noted Luis Medina as a concern with the walks. Now, Ty, before I remove our league leaders, if you look down, you'll see a couple of names with the walks right beside them. The walks are pretty high. And if you want to discuss anything you like or don't like about those guys, Seth Corey would be the first one on the list that I see.
Yeah, Seth Corey, Steven Gonzalez are guys that I'm not touching myself. Like, these are just, they're high K, high walk guys. These are the kind of guys that, you get to the major leagues and they get shelled, right? It's just something, you mentioned in a conversation off the air, Robbie, with me, just, you don't want that at the major league level, because you're going to get eaten alive by major league hitters. You don't have enough of a discrepancy. That's why the K to walk ratio is so important. Ks are fantastic, but if you're only scraping by getting out of innings with the bases loaded,
right? Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and look at the whips of both the guys: 1.5 for Gonzalez in 19 1/3 innings, and 1.63 for Seth Corey. Now, Corey, just anyone that doesn't know, is high with San Francisco. He was a 3rd round pick in 17, and Steven Gonzalez has been around a long time. He was a 4th round pick way back in 13. Lefty injuries. He was a high school guy. This is one of those project high school drafted dudes that takes forever. Now he was 4th round, not 1st round, but the scenario is still here. Like he was dropped right before the season in a 30-team league of mine. And I scooped him up thinking, well, let's see what happened. As the minor league baseball got started, I'm like, yeah, no, never mind. I dropped him from my minors.
Yeah. And I mean, there's lots of scenarios with guys like this where, they could become a successful bullpen arm later. Like time will tell.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah. They knock that pitch out that screws them over. They just make an adjustment, basically. That's really what they need to do. They need to make an adjustment.
So I just really quickly on that list before we move on.
Yeah.
Zach Gambley, 3rd round pick of the Marlins, 28 strikeouts so far, is a guy that I think is flying below a lot of radars. And so I just want to mention him really quickly as a guy that should be owned out of Coastal Carolina. He was part of that really good deep run. And I think they won the national championship. I don't pay attention enough to championships at the college level to know, but I think they ended up winning. It was that one where the guy beat his chest at second base, like that team. So he was a big part of that. And a small school went to a very big game, right? So that's definitely a guy that I'm paying attention to, and he's done quite well early on in the minor leagues. And his ERA is up a little bit this week. I think he had one bad outing, but has been pretty good before that. So a guy definitely to try to grab if you can. That shouldn't cost you a ton. If anyone's overvaluing him at this point, they're either a super fan or they're a fellow listener. So definitely take a look there.
And to your point, a 3rd-round pick in last year's draft, I honestly do not, when I saw the name, I'm like, was he part of last year's draft class? And then I looked it up. I'm like, holy crap. And then you go to RobbieBaseball.com, you can look at our first year player average draft position, and you can find how far back Zach McCambley is on that list to know if he had even been picked up in leagues. He was not on a single person's top 50. And this was like industry lists, like you name it, they're on there. Some of them just said, don't post this publicly, but here's the list. And so we just made that big mashup list that you can go to RobbieBaseball.com and have a look at. But he's one of those guys that's beating it out this year. There's another dude, Reed Detmers, who we can talk about as well. Ty, 27 Ks for Reed. Now, neither of us were big fans of Reed. 3.12 ERA, 1.15 WHIP so far. Now, this is Reed Detmers, 21-year-old at AA. Aggressive assignment. He's handled it well through 3 starts. So I'm happy to see it. I don't own him anywhere, but
He's
that's
an old
okay.
college or a young college arm though, right? Like that's important to keep in mind. So he's got some innings on the arm a little bit, so he can handle a little bit more of aggressive assignment. I still don't think the stuff plays that well at the major league level. It's very similar to a Michael Fulmer kind of stuff. He's a lefty in comparison to Michael Fulmer, but the stuff to me reminds me of the mirror image version of Michael Fulmer, and we see how that plays out of the starting rotation. So that's kind of where my hesitation comes from with him.
So I've got one more name just because you mentioned McCambley with Miami, 3rd-round pick this year, and that is Jake Eder, the 4th-round pick for Miami this past year. He is now in AA as well, and a 22-year-old 6'4", 215 lefty, and he has 26 Ks in 15 innings, but he has 11 walks. The ERA is 0.6, so he's very actually similar to Crochet as far as the stat line goes, with the walks, the high Ks, and the WHIP at 1.07. But just somebody to note. And again, these guys from last year's draft class going to AA, that's cool to see. I would love, I've said this before, I think I would love to see the high drafted college guys get up early in the high levels and be pushed into bullpen roles with the major league team so that the major league team knows what these guys can do, what their best pitches are, how they can attack MLB hitters, things like that. And then they would cycle them back into the rotation. Now, Ty, you will say, well, then they're not, learning their full like arsenal and whatever. Well, that's what the coaching part of the major league bullpen coach, the catcher, like all of those guys are there to ensure that those things develop behind the scenes. And I just think that would be a great idea. But if they're not going to do that, at least getting guys who were drafted the previous year into AA, that's a huge step in the right direction in my mind. And Miami is a pitching factory. We know that.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. But I'm not ready to see guys get moved too quickly. We've seen what it's done to a lot of arms over the years. They might
name one pitcher who's ever been hurt.
Noah Syndergaard.
No.
Steven Matz.
Erroneous.
All those guys got rushed.
You just named Matz.
Yeah. And look how that's going. Right? Like
just
the only guy consistent in their rotation came from the Jays, right? So, and the other guy.
Well, that DeGrom guy seems like he's okay.
He came from single A. He made the jump. But he went straight from he's a sole, like a one-off guy that went from single A right to the pros, as we all know. Yeah.
So let's go the other way, Ty. Let's go with guys who have high walks, just across all of minor league baseball that we could have some concerns with. Yep. Like, you've touched on Gonzalez, we touched on Ray, but the next guy down, Ty, that one's set up just for you, my friend.
Yes, it is. It is. Asa Lacy is a guy that I've talked about as a guy out of the class that I do not like. I am not an Asa Lacy guy. I think he could be a very effective bullpen lefty. I do think that, but I do not think he can be an SP1, which is what he's been drafted to do. And I'm not a fan of the stuff. The 20 walk or strikeouts to 14 walks, 1.62 WHIP with a 4.15. It's just not my kind of guy.
And
that's
only 13 innings. Like
Yeah.
that's like 20 or more innings of work for most dudes
And
at high A.
the only thing I'm going to watch with Asa Lacy is I'm going to see if people get out early on him. We're seeing some of these numbers because it could be a mechanical change that Kansas City's making. Like the velocity is
Right.
there, you know, but it's a lot of, you know, I talk about it with like Matt Manning where they had to switch up some pitching to line up some of the everybody's favorite word, tunneling, to try to get some of these pitches to look the same. Because if they're not lining up, it's very easy to tell the difference between the pitches at the major league level. So, you know, that's what I've seen with Asa Lacy. I'm concerned about it. I will remain concerned, but I will look for a rebound. And if I see it, I will buy him. But I think there's a long way to go, and I'm not optimistic that it's going to happen.
Okay, we touched on Luis Medina with the Yankees at high A, 32 Ks, but 12 walks. The next guy up is wily veteran, but still only 30 years old, Drew Hutchinson. If you are a team with a rebuild on the go and you are looking for the potential impact type guy who can help you later on in the year, Drew Hutchinson's stat line will confuse you beyond belief. 23 Ks in 19 innings this year, 12 walks, the whip at 1.47, and an ERA at 4.26. Detroit at AAA, right? Detroit's rotation absolutely could use a good pitcher if they could get one. Drew Hutchinson has been an opening day starter. When the Jays brought in a whole bunch of dudes once upon a time, it was thought that Hutchinson was going to have to like force his way in there and things were going to happen. And all of a sudden he just dropped off the face of the earth, but he's still only 30, 6'3", 215. The build is solid for him. Is there any hope if you were to take a flyer on Drew Hutchinson, Ty, that he returns value?
No, I am
bounced.
He is gone. You are not on the list.
Let's do the same thing then with reliever only option Anthony Gose, who's at AAA with Cleveland in 6 1/3 innings. He's got 9 Ks, but 12 walks, and the whip is just under 3.
I'm going to go the other way because
the
benefit Anthony Gose for the Indians this season is that he can hit too, and they can't do a lot of that.
He can't hit. That's why he's pitching.
Neither can the rest of that team, so you never know. Like
that's true.
He'd be hitting 2 on that roster right now. Somehow they're above 500 because their pitching's been really good, and we kind of expected that from Cleveland, and everyone wrote them off as a team that no one was going to see this year. But
and Bieber was the first MLB pitcher to hit 100 Ks today, Ty. If you did not know that, now you do. So good for him. Let's see, Franklin Kilome, who was up last year with the Mets. Now this year he's at AAA. He was a J2 signing. He's 25 years old. The righty is 6'6", and the build that Ty hates, 175. Oh, so thin. So in 17 2/3 innings this year, he has compiled all of 8 Ks, 5.6 ERA, 1.47 whip as well, and 12 walks. Ty, if you own him, if someone's talking trade and his name comes up, what are you thinking about Franklin Kilome? Was he just a mirage last year of like a guy that came up but never to make an impact in fantasy again?
I think he's one of those guys with the frame and the talent and never actually figured it out, right? And that happens, right? There's lots of athletes over a very long stretch of time across all sports that were supposed to be great and just never were. He's not quite Ryan Leaf, but, he's definitely a disappointment for his stock. Like he was a big signing out of the J2 class. And, the numbers just aren't there. The walks are way too high. He's not getting people out via the strikeout. I think his days are numbered as a Met for sure, and potentially as a major leaguer. This could be a guy that goes the Dan Straley path, and we might see some success in Asia with a different setup. We've seen a lot of guys that are close and borderline successful make that jump across the pond. So I could see that as a potential future for him.
Now, we can't leave New York without heading to Yankeeville one more time to go with Deivi Garcia, the 22-year-old, 5'9" righty, only 4 innings. And I think he's considered on something right now. He's not officially rostered at the moment. I'm not sure if there was death in the family or if there was an injury. It didn't state injury. But anyway, he's got 12 walks in 4 innings. So assuming that's not some clerical error, clerical error. It's nice to get those words wrong. on MILB.com, he does have 12 walks and 4 innings, and that is wonky donkey. He has already started once for the Yankees, and the assumption headed all the way into spring training was that Devi was going to be the SP5 with the Yankees this year, and he is not. So depending on what's up here, Ty, I can't say, are you concerned? Of course you are. Everybody who sees 4 innings pitched and 12 Ks has concerns. Do you think that maybe they were just trying to get him to do something that he couldn't do? Like, how does that happen?
Like, I like his stuff. I like everything about Devi Garcia except for his frame, right? I've talked about this before. There's very few small build pitchers that last, right? It's very few. And, you've seen it a little bit with Marcus Stroman as maybe one that comes to mind. When he's been healthy, he's been very good. And I feel Devi Garcia would be very similar. And I just think he's going to struggle to stay on the field for a long part of his career. And so it could be a scenario where he has, age 23 through age 26 success, and then we start to see him slowly disappear. So that's the way I'm kind of approaching Devi Garcia. Where I own him is I'm going to own him and I'm going to get rid of him, and I'm not going to look back. And if he has a 20-year career and I'm wrong, great. But I'll play the odds that that's not going to be the case.
Okay, well, fair enough. Now here's somebody 23-year-old at high with Seattle is Matt Brash. Brash has a pretty good-looking line outside of the walks. He has 11 walks and 15 and 2/3 innings, but a 2.30 ERA, 27 Ks, and a 1.4 WHIP. Brash is nobody from nowhere. 4th-round pick in 19. That's buried, but he's got the high A assignment, and he's kind of performing well. I'm wondering if Seattle is doing something that's engaging those walks, or if that's just Brash missing. And if it's him missing a lot, then we will know within the next 30 innings that he pitches, because he will be up and north of 30 walks. And then we will see that there's a true problem here. But otherwise, I kind of have a little tick on him now, Ty. He's got the Seattle bump for me. He's got the 6'1", 170 frame is fine by me. It's a little on the thin side for a dude, but he's obviously going to be able to make it work. I've got my eyes now on Brash as an outside the box prospect.
Well, and fun fact, Kingston, Ontario native.
Oh, attaboy.
I didn't know if you knew that or not.
I did not. I'm going to put him in red now.
Yeah, put a red star on it. For me, it's the 170 6'1" frame that is a little concerning for me. The mechanics are very herky-jerky. I could see him being a bullpen piece potentially, but I'm not so sure that there's enough there to be relevant outside of that. So I'm not going to get overly excited about it just because of the likelihood that's a bullpen arm.
Okay, the next guy up here is Mackenzie Gore. We've seen some of the prospect big dogs that are out there on the host sites saying they're concerned about Mackenzie Gore. So I'd like to give you, Ty, the floor to tell everybody welcome to the club, and maybe here's a little wake-up call from the tourney boss.
Yeah, honestly, this is a guy that I've been saying for a while that I'm not overly excited about. If you look at the end of 2019, everybody looks at his 2019 numbers and gets super excited. And if you look, he actually had a brief stint in AA, and it was not good. It's because I had said this many, many times that I have grave concerns over his stuff playing at the higher levels. And we're starting to see that come out a little bit. As we saw so far this season to AAA, in 16 innings, he has 11 earned runs, 10 walks, and a whip of 1.8. Now, I'm concerned. I've been concerned, and I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. He's certainly not a safe bet, right? We saw a trade in our home league last week, which was insane.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. We have to say something so that this can be titled, "Is there a Glenn in your league?" Sorry, please. Say the trade.
Yeah, it was basically, I won't even include some of the other players.
And Glenn was on this podcast for 2 of the preview episodes before the season started. So you should possibly be familiar with Glenn's voice. So here is Glenn making a trade in fantasy baseball.
Yeah, he traded Mackenzie Gore for Patrick Corbin, essentially, almost straight up. Now, Sean Manaea, Ian Happ came back, but in a shallow 14-team league, those
Corbin Burns, Ty. Corbin Burns.
Who did I say?
You either said Martin or someone else. So it was Mackenzie Gore essentially for Corbin Burns, but it was Corbin Burns and something else that he gave up. And he got Mackenzie Gore, Ian Happ, some minor draft pick
Luis
improvement.
Ariz, which isn't that valuable in
Luis
a
Ariz.
shallow 8x8. Right?
8x8, yeah.
Yeah. So it's
an
not,
injured average only guy.
Yeah, exactly. So that part wasn't that big of a deal. It just wasn't enough for Corbin Burns. It's that simple. But the point is that in my opinion, Mackenzie Gore is never going to be an SP1, and so trading an SP1 for somebody that's never going to be an SP1 is just not the best move in the world. Now, if I'm wrong, cool. I'll gladly admit that I was wrong on Mackenzie Gore. I've been wrong on guys before, but this is one I'm willing to bet that isn't going to be there. And as we see the rest of the people around us make adjustments on Mackenzie Gore, this is what we talk about all the time. Accountability in this thing that we do here on Dingers is we try to give you the heads up before, not just because Baseball America says these guys are going to be good and because they're the guys that get the most press and the most clicks on their websites, but we're talking about guys that are going to help you win championships. And I believe Mackenzie Gore, it is time to sell, and I'd be selling now for me. And if you want to follow that, go for it. If you want to ride it, you could be right. But I would bet that you can peak out on value today.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably 15 innings or 3 more starts away from people starting to have some serious concerns with Mackenzie Gore if he cannot get a handle on AA batters. So the next guy up,
he's at triple though. He is at triple, but just keep in mind though,
he is a AAA.
He is at triple, and that's where he's struggling. But keep in mind that the 21 innings he had at double, which is what I was alluding to in 2019, he had a 4.15 ERA. So it's not to say Mackenzie Gore cannot be a major leaguer. I'm just saying he's not going to be an elite front end major leaguer. That's what I'm trying to communicate. So, okay. Yeah, I just think you need to make decisions based on your team. If you got nobody, you got nothing to lose. But if you are banking on him, isolating you for a championship in 2 years, I'd be looking elsewhere.
Okay, sorry. I do apologize that, yes, those are AAA numbers that were written down. I had put AA. Maybe I just forgot the other A. Maybe that's because I know he should be back at AA. So either way, the next guy up, speaking of accountability, Ty, ya boy, Hector Olivares, he showed up as I was sifting through names initially, and I was like, hey, Ty likes that guy. And then I was like, ugh, 16 2/3, 17 innings for Olivares, 12 Ks, which is not what he's supposed to do. 10 walks, which is not what he's supposed to do. And it's, I don't know if this is at an elevated location in high A, but the ERA is 4.76 right now and 1.76 whip. Not a good start. Are you just expecting consistent improvement?
Yeah, like my guess here is like you're talking about a kid that's at high A on the 40-man roster. So, you talk about this from time to time about the value of being on the 40-man.
100%. It is invaluable because you are ahead of most of the people when you are in the minors already. You're on the list.
So I'm not ready to be concerned. My guess is we're seeing some small mechanical changes.
Right.
Which is
working through something.
So like in kind of, this is a great segue from Mackenzie Gore into Helcrist Olivares. They're at very different stages of their development, right? You have Mackenzie Gore at AAA. Everyone thinks he's ready, except for the Padres, and the Padres are right. Whereas here with Helcrist Olivares, nobody thinks he's ready. The Rockies don't think he's ready because he still has development ahead. But if you look at the career numbers, we've seen a development in his K per 9. His career average K per 9 is 10.3. It's 6.4 right now this season. So he's still, 3.5 years below the average age at high A. So he's got a lot of room still to develop and to build. He's 6'2", 190, a decent build for a starting pitcher. I'm liking the direction. I like the peripheral numbers from past years. So unless something continues to go down this path, which I don't believe it will, I'm still in on Helcrist, and we'll update you as the season goes on.
Perfect. And that, like, their line, Gore and Helcrist Olivares, are very similar. They're, 22 and 20 years old, but the bodies are the same. The stat line is almost identical for each guy, other than Gore's ERA is 1.2 higher. It's pretty similar line. So somebody else that's on the disappointing end, we're hammering this one home. We're talking about Gore. We're talking now Colorado pitchers, Riley Pint. Let's just be done, guys. The 4th overall
So-
pick in 16, 7 2/3. Yes, Ty.
I have a funny story. I was sitting with a guy at a industry dinner one night, and his son is in the Rockies system, and they were talking about just how much everybody in the Rockies system hates Riley Pint because he comes in, he's this like first round pick guy that everyone in the organization is like, oh, Riley Pint could be a great pitcher one day, and everyone on his team's like, this guy sucks, right? Because he goes out there and starts the game, and 6 batters in, they're into the bullpen already, and they haven't made 2 outs yet. So, it's one of those things that there is some improvement this year. I will say that. Like we're seeing some progression. The frame is intimidating, right?
Yeah.
6'5", 225. The K rate is 11 to 8 in 7.2 innings, right? So we're starting to see bullpen level numbers start to evolve.
But the 8 walks. 8 walks in 7 2/3. That's
still at a high A, and he's still just 23. But
I'm not going to still just 23 a high school drafted guy, right? 5
Correct.
years of pro. He was not picked up in the Rule 5.
This is what bullpen arms are, though.
Okay, I would say this is what the last guy in your bullpen is if you're the Pirates. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention him so that everybody knows in Dynasty, if you haven't already, get Riley Pint into one of your trades to make it done. Get him off your roster. This isn't. We were all for.
Trade him to me. I will take.
Okay,
him. There's still
there we
time
go.
For development.
There's always a sucker, right? You only need one. You only need one. And then speaking of sucker, let me talk about
Corbin Burns. Was that what we? Sorry,
no.
What were we talking about?
Oh my God! Don't you dare! Don't you dare!
You did it.
Oh my God! Corbin Burns and Riley Pint. No, thank you. But Tyler Beede is on the road back from Tommy John, the 14th overall pick in 2014. Has 10 1/3 innings in this year, and I'm really happy to see the line. Yes, he has 8 walks, but that's okay for a guy coming back from Tommy John surgery who's a major league pitcher. He also has 15 Ks and a 2.61 ERA and a 1.26 whip. I don't care about the other 2 numbers, the ERA and the whip right now. What I like to see is that he's able to get batters out. And yes, he's walking guys, but that's what happens when you come back from Tommy John. I'm gonna assume San Francisco is just going to let him hang out there for a while. I don't know why they would try to push this with him. They might just give him 1 start a week. I don't know. We'll see in a month. We'll see what Tyler Beede's looking like for his inning count as well, because this should certainly be a slow tick. Plus, San Francisco's overperforming.
Yeah, and I think San Francisco should be looking to make some trades, right? And I think Cueto could be a guy that they should try to move that contract if anyone's willing to take it off their hands. But you know what? I think we're going to see Beede either mid-season or later this year. I think they're going to want to build them up, and I don't think there's an answer we know yet. It doesn't really matter who's wrong or who's right, just Beede. You know how that is.
Oh my goodness,
little Michael for us here. But yeah, yeah. So I'll leave it there, and I'll let you.
Sure. I've only got 4 names left to mention, Ty, and you've already mentioned one of them in Zach McCambley. He was one of those sleeper guys, 3rd round pick last year, as we mentioned. Luis Gil, who was a J2 guy, is at AA with the Yankees right now. He's got 28 Ks in 15 innings. Chase DeJong, 27-year-old Pittsburgh AAA guy, 20 innings, 28 Ks, 3.6 ERA, 1.2 whip. Just somebody, if you're looking for somebody that could come up and get into that Pittsburgh rotation at some point in time. And Corey Abbott, a 25-year-old righty with the Cubbies, and he's got 28 Ks in 19 1/3. ERA sucks, 6.52, but just a high K guy. So just somebody to note. So this was the first go through of the pitchers. We went through a lot. We went through the MLB rookies of note. No, we did not cover all of them, of course. So got a couple guys that will graduate before we get back to these guys in 2 weeks. But it's an interesting list. If you want us to try to focus on something MLB relevant, fantasy relevant within that 5x5 or 8x8 category, hit us up at Dingers Pod. We would love to know your thoughts on how we can help you get the edge to your draft. If you want to be one of the guys who trades away your high picks for some assets right away, and you still want to scoop up some value in late rounds, that's my jam, baby. That's my jam. Hit us up. We will help you to find those guys. A lot of that work gets done in the off season with the Rule 5, but without the Rule 5 knowledge that we have today, we get the benefit of looking through all of these minor league teams to have a look and see, what's going on. So next week we're back to hitters, Ty, on the second episode of next week. One of the big things will be who's stealing bases, who's still rocking power. And we're going to start to see more and more of the call-ups and possibly some demotions. We know Keston Hiura's back up. Who else?
I mean,
who else?
We want to touch on Alek Manoah here?
Okay, sure. I guess we left it.
Yeah. I mean, Alek Manoah started today in New York. Absolute dominant 6 innings, was very, very good. Struck out 7, and it was really good. And I want to introduce a new graphic for you, Robbie.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So this is why I wanted to go over it, because
sorry.
I think Manoah can be part of the Told You So militia.
Oh my God.
So I think this is perfect.
Oh my God.
Purchase. And for those of you that got in on Alek Manoah, you're welcome. This is
Can that be a t-shirt? Please get that on Twitter.
It's so good, right?
Oh man.
I think it's absolutely perfect that he lit it up today, because I was trying to tell you and I was trying to tell everybody else. And I got several texts today that said, thank you for telling me to buy Manoah.
Hey, that's nice.
And you're welcome. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? We're trying to give you guys those tips ahead of the curve that are a little bit different. And Robbie's great at finding those guys in the bargain bin that are showing all the peripheral numbers that I'm not looking. I'm good at finding the guys that are showing mechanical changes and updates and changes. So we're a great pair to listen and learn from. And we look forward to having you next week on Dingers. So until then, it's been Rob and Tyler on Dingers.